Hello and welcome to On the Record. I'm Mark Dreyer. In this episode, we talk to Ricardo Melendez-Ortiz, the Chief Executive of the International Centre for Trade and Sustainable Development. The Colombian co-founded the Geneva-based non-profit NGO in 1996. Since that time, the centre has attempted to advance the goal of sustainable development by bridging the gaps between the technical and political contexts of global trade partners. In this interview, he talks about the challenges of instituting a global energy trade agreement, how renewable energies can become competitive in today's market, and how China is settling into a more prominent role on the world stage 10 years after it joined the WTO. With China well on the way to becoming the largest economy in the world, questions remain about how China might use its growing stature to change the power balance of global trade. The WTO was formed in 1995, but its predecessor, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, dates back to 1946, a time when China's global influence was comparatively microscopic. It's clear that that initial starting point bears little resemblance to the modern global economy, but it's not yet clear who will or should lead the way towards creating a more reflective global system, and one that can successfully avoid the trade disputes that are all too common today. Thank you very much for being with us. Now, one of the things that your organisation is trying to do is get together a global trade agreement when it comes to renewable energy. Just talk a little bit about that.
Well, in the current situation, there are no rules at the international level that really cover energy. We have a situation again where fossil fuels don't internalize carbon costs and environmental externalities, and still they get very big subsidies on the production and the consumption end in many parts of the world. And then we have concerns about energy security, about energy access, about 1.6 billion people around the world without access to modern forms of energy, and obviously the carbon question, so climate change. So what we have understood is that when you trade in fossil fuels, you're trading in the fuel which you commoditize. It's a commodity that goes across borders. But when you are dealing with renewable energies, you're really talking about technologies, you're talking about innovation, you're talking about components, you're talking about goods and services, and you move them across the borders. But there's no, again, framework to regulate this. So markets are terribly distorted and they're terribly obstacleized. They're full of barriers. So what we're trying to do is then get governments, companies, large players, and China certainly is the largest player today in renewable energies, to come together and try to agree to certain rules to play this game.
Now, you mentioned China is the largest player. How key exactly is China? Does it all hinge on the Chinese being involved? Presumably, if you're trying to pull together this kind of global framework, without China, it just simply won't work.
Absolutely. So right now, with the technologies that we have, China has become the largest producer of windmills. It has become the largest producer of solar panels. It is probably in course to be the largest producer also of new generation biofuels. As it is right now, countries like the US and obviously the EU and many others are trying to develop their own renewable energies industries. So you have the traditional industrial policy and all sorts of distortions, all sorts of interventions from the state into those markets in that field of renewable energies.
Now, in a place like China where gas prices are kept artificially low, how can the renewable energies compete financially given those other concerns?
So this is, again, the biggest difficulty in getting renewables to be competitive, the low price of fossil fuels. And gas is now probably going to become the biggest competitor vis-a-vis any other forms of energy. What governments are doing, including China, is then setting up a whole infrastructure of policies that have to do with the smart grids, they have to do with feed-in tariffs, they have to do with special incentives of all forms, both to the consumption as well as to the production again. And that's the only way to play the game. So I guess towards the future, what we would need is to level that playing field by cutting subsidies and cutting assistance to fossil fuels. Hopefully also getting fuels to reflect the real cost in the market.